What if I was to tell you that your goals don't matter? Well, technically, your goals do matter. That's why I teach goal setting. But your goals have to be coming from a certain place. Otherwise, you're going to get to the end of them and they won't matter. So that's what I want to talk about today. Because your goals, if they're not coming from the right place, will not matter. You'll get to them and then you'll fail miserably, even if you succeeded in achieving your goal. But if you do this one thing first, or even during your process of achieving your goals, then your goals will fulfill your wildest dreams. First of all, welcome back to another video. I'm Ann Blackwood, your Silicon Valley sage sister, here to bring consciousness to the forefront of your daily life to make life a little kinder and simpler. Have you ever been in a situation where you finally achieved something and you thought you were going to get this big high out of it and you still felt hollow? Or you did get a big high off of it, but that wore off really quickly, and then once again you felt hollow and you wonder why you ever did it at all, or you wonder why you still feel miserable. That's because the goal is not what actually matters. Where the goal is coming from is what actually matters. And all too often these days, we are programmed to achieve for external validation. But when we try to succeed at achieving goals through external validation, for external validation, we end up achieving that goal and just going back to feeling sad, to feeling empty, to feeling purposeless again. Because that's what we do, is we give ourselves a goal, it gives us a purpose for a little while. But then once we achieve it, we're still left with whatever set us out to achieve that goal in the first place. This hole we're trying to fill with external validation. External validation is never going to make us happy. Not truly. We have to have meaning. We have to have purpose. We have to understand what our values, priorities are, and we have to build our belief systems on that so we can set out to achieve our goals from a meaningful place. And external validation, achieving external validation, trying to get praise and approval is never from anyone outside of yourself going to fulfill you. So I want you to start thinking about it this way. The healing comes from within. And if you think about it like a real cut, the scab doesn't magically form from things outside of ourselves. The healing happens from within. The scab starts to get built up on the outside from healing that's happening in our body from within. That too is how we heal our emotional wounds. And yet we are constantly trying to fill the holes that we have because of emotional wounds with outside things, rather than realizing, as we know for other things, that in the same way, that healing has to start from within. So when we're setting our goals, we have to start asking ourselves, why are we doing this? Why do I actually want to achieve this goal? What would it do for me? Would it get me somebody's praise, which is really you trying to get somebody's love and affection? But will their approval really do that? Not usually. I like to use the example of the people who go off to school and get a job, a career, because their parents wanted them to, and they think their parents' approval equals their parents' love. But it doesn't. It doesn't. This is what we're doing with all sorts of things when we set goals that are an attempt to fill ourselves through external validation, when what would actually solve our problems is something that comes from within. We don't find happiness from outside of ourselves like we think we do. We get told all the time, we get this feeling all the time that we're trying to make our way to happiness. But that's not how it works. Happiness is the way. It's not what we're trying to go to. No amount of external validation is going to get us there. And how many times have you, because I know we all have, found ourselves trying to get some sort of outside validation to fulfill whatever it is we're trying to fulfill within us, and then you realize that it didn't solve your problems. Whether you consciously realize it or not, you feel it. You felt that. We all have. I know you have. We get this idea in our heads that we need to find our way to happiness. But happiness, like anything else that is truly going to fulfill us in this life, starts from within. I want you to think about this with me for a second. We all know that stereotype. We've all been there where you hear about this person. You've been that person who starts out your day having a bad day, and so everything else seems to go wrong. As where you start out having a good day, you start out happy, and so everything at a minimum is good. And very possibly everything that goes on during your day because you started having a good day just seemed a little better than having had started from a bad day. That is because our mindset, what we focus on, is quite literally what affects what we experience. Think about it. Really think about it. We all know the stereotype. We all know the stereotype of the person who starts off in a bad mood and therefore everything that they encounter seems bad, as opposed to the person who starts off happy and therefore doesn't find the things that could possibly be even adversarial to them as such, because they just started in a better place emotionally than the person who started in a bad mood. And we all can do this. We can all do this consciously. So, what if you were able to start doing this consciously? Rather than going about your day on some sort of comfortably numb autopilot, as we all too often do, what if you were to start consciously choosing to be happy? Because you can. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to run into things that are painful in our lives. I mentioned this, have been mentioning this a lot recently, where yes, painful things are going to show up in our lives. I mean, even think about it this way. Eventually, you're going to stub your toe on something in your life. Sometime in your life, you're going to even just stub your toe on something. But the story you choose to tell yourself about stubbing your toe is up to you. Whether or not it's going to be painful for a long time because you're going to turn that physical pain into emotional pain, you're going to stress out about it, that's up to you. Or you can be like, oops, I stubbed my toe. The physical pain fades actually faster because you've let your mind move on from it rather than if you focused on it. And then you don't let it affect you because you're like, oh, it happened, and you move on. We can all do this with whatever comes our way. So what if you decided to stop consciously choosing to tell yourself the stories that create the suffering in your life, that tell you that things are bad, they're gonna be bad for whatever reason, and start to consciously choose to tell yourself the stories, to start choosing to look at life as an adventure, as exciting, as something that you can be solution oriented with rather than problem oriented with. That would change your life. Now, also, this isn't to say that we want to completely eliminate our ability to recognize when we are unhappy, because those things are important. To recognize that you're uncomfortable, to recognize just for a brief moment that there is something that's coming in as a pain signal, that's important because that tells us when we need to pivot. But that's how this works, is you're following, people say this all the time, following your joy, following joy. What does that actually mean? What that means is that as long as you're going through life and things are giving you the signal of joy and happiness, you're following that. You're going with that flow. And then you're going to run into something that sends you that signal of pain, pain, pain. And what do? Can I turn this into something pleasurable? Which more often than not, probably not, depending on what it is. But you can, for some things, be like, oh, this is recognized as a pain signal, but it doesn't need to be painful. This doesn't need to be stressful at a minimum. Whoop, moving on to happiness. Or if something is out of your control and sending you a pain signal, you pivot away from it. You find a way to pivot away from the things that you cannot change and cannot control. But most of us look at those things and think they're inevitable in our lives and that we have to face them. But we don't necessarily have to face them in the way we think we do. We don't have to be subjected to them being a moment of suffering in our lives. We can either start telling ourselves a different story about them, or we can pivot away from them. And we always have these two options, depending on what they are, that are what the things are that are sending us these pain signals. The best thing about developing these spiritual levels of consciousness, living from these spiritual levels of consciousness, is that we can all go through life knowing that no matter what comes our way, we have the tools to face them, or we have the tools to pivot away from them, and that we will come out on the other side of whatever comes our way in life better for it, or at a minimum unscathed. And wouldn't we all like to actually know how to fish rather than be given fish? I think so. Wouldn't you rather to know how to do these things for yourself rather than have to get stuck on that hamster wheel of hurting and healing that so many people offer people when it comes to healing? It blows my mind how so many people sell people on this idea that they can heal with them when we heal from within. That's why I tell people, healers don't heal, they facilitate self-healing. You're doing the healing from within. They're just offering you the tools. But more often, they're performing the tools with you, so you don't actually know how to do them for yourself. I want you to be able to do them for yourself. Wouldn't it feel great to be able to do that for yourself? So that you don't need anybody else if you don't want anybody else? Or you can just choose somebody else without necessarily feeling like you have to rely on somebody else? I know that's a freedom that I love. We all have the ability to start telling ourselves these stories that life is going to be fun and happy and exciting and a learning experience rather than miserable, and that we're bound to suffer and all of these things. We all have the ability to do this. We all have the ability to have the tools, skills, and habits to have happiness come naturally in our lives. I had someone the other day ask me, are you always this happy and bubbly? And it's funny because my significant other describes me as a cactus with a little speech bubble that says everything's going to be okay. Because to other people, I can come off as a little serious. To other people, I can come off as prickly. But at any time, anything I'm faced with, whenever I'm faced with something that anyone else would consider stressful, my mind immediately goes to the solution. and therefore doesn't get stressed out by it. And not just one solution, but multiple solutions, multiple perspectives. And so at a minimum, things aren't stressful. And at a maximum, I can laugh in the face of whatever most people would find stressful, because I can maintain my level of comfort that I had before whatever would possibly cause me stress came into my life. I can maintain that. And that's something I want to offer everybody, because everybody can do it. Wouldn't that feel great to know? Wouldn't you feel great if you knew that no matter what came your way, it was your choice and you could maintain your level of comfort? Now, this isn't to say that I never get stressed out by anything, because I'm still human. I am even still working on things that I recognize I have to work on. But just looking back on my life before now, at any point, I can see the timeline of how I used to get stressed out by things that don't stress me out at all anymore. At all. Not even a little bit. And anybody can do this. Anybody can do this for themselves. And I can honestly say that, like, looking back on it, like 90%, easily 90% of the things that would have stressed me out in the past do not stress me out anymore. Not even a little bit. And the things that do stress me out, I know what stresses me out about them, which most people don't actually know what stresses them out about things. And so I know what I need to be working on and am actively working on them. And anybody can do this. I can teach anybody to do this for themselves. My ability to do this is not unique in any way. And so I've made it my point and purpose to teach people these things rather than have them done to them. Because then you get stuck on that hamster wheel of hurting and healing and hurting and healing, rather than ever being able to move on to the proactive things, or ever discover the proactive things that allow you to actually maintain a healthy and happy life after you've done the healing. These don't have to be a secret, though so many people from a lack mindset want to keep them a secret. I don't want to keep them a secret, because I look at the universe from an abundance mindset, that there is more than enough to go around, and that everybody deserves to be healthy and happy naturally, because all it takes is developing this spiritual level of consciousness that is not actually magic like people think it is. It's some practical steps that lead you to it, that lead you to the mindset, that lead you to the tools that you can do for yourself at any time, once you've just figured out what they are. And I don't feel like because I figured out what they are that I need to keep them for myself. I don't want to do that. I want everybody to have these tools, because I want everybody to be able to do this for themselves, so that they can have natural happiness come naturally to them. Health come naturally to them. Everybody can heal the holes from within them and then move forward to better with these proactive tools. That is what motivates me every day to do all of these videos, everything I've got on Patreon, working with people one-on-one. And I am so grateful that I have this, because I can only imagine what my life would be like, what other people's lives would be like without these tools. And that's what I want to give to everybody. So, the first thing I want you to remember, the one thing I want you to take away from this now, at a minimum, is that when setting your goals, you have to first ask yourself, what is the reason I'm doing this? Why am I doing this? Because if it's for any sort of external validation, you need to figure out why you want that external validation and figure out what would actually be the healthy way to have that hole filled from within. And I know you can figure it out. You'll know. You'll know what it is. You'll know what it is you're trying to get and who you're trying to get it from. And then you can start to think about what would actually be the ways that this would come from within. How can I get this from within instead? Start there. Thank you guys for joining me for another video. Don't forget to check out the links in the description. I know if you're enjoying my videos here, you will enjoy the links in the description. That includes working with me one-on-one. I have 2 spots left for anyone who wants to work with me one-on-one. So you can reserve one of those 2 spots with the link in the description. That includes my Patreon with all of the self-study, the library of self-study, workshop replays, guided meditations, my intuitive lifestyle course, and so much more. Spirituality 101 and 2.0, where we're learning the A Course in Miracles exercises from the student workbook. And you can have access to all of those things and more as I continue to fill it up. I've been filling it for 2 years. There's a lot of great information in there that I feel like everybody deserves to have, should have. Let's see, what else? dōTERRA, of course. I don't know why I always stop and have to remember this part. dōTERRA is your one-stop shop for all your natural living needs. Natural living needs. And so when it comes to taking care of your body and the mind, body, spirit, human health system, dōTERRA is how you want to do that, really, because they are the best, purest plant-based products, the best, purest essential oils on the market. And they have ready-made products that they use with the essential oils at the base of these products. And oh my gosh, are they so amazing and pure and potent. I don't know how I ever lived without them. I use so many of their products on a daily, like many of their products on a daily basis. So you'll want to go check out dōTERRA. There are memberships we have and a bunch of ways to get perks and points. So if you want to chat with me about dōTERRA and how we can get you set up with a membership that'll get you a minimum of 25% off every purchase every time. And then if you want to set up the monthly subscribe and save option, that'll get you free things depending on how much you spend, which is actually not a whole lot to start getting the free things, because you'll start getting points back and those points get you free things too. It's so great. If you want to do that, sign up for my free clarity call and check the dōTERRA box, and we will get you set up with an account. Or if you're the kind of person who likes to do that stuff yourself, you can just do that through the link in my description to dōTERRA. Other links in the description. Go check them out. And as always, may the energies you serve you well. And let's keep making our way through.